Today is Thursday, like always. We have a special guest, and we're not going to waste any time because we want to use all the time that we have with her because she is such an amazing woman, and we can't wait. We couldn't wait to get her on. If we could have started the show last week, we would have, but we wanted to wait until today to keep y'all waiting. We want to thank y'all for your support over the last 2.5 years. I don't see it up on LinkedIn just yet, Brian. Oh, there you go. Never mind. Okay, so please make sure you do your part and share these videos. Do not just keep this information for yourself. You need to make sure everybody needs to hear her story. So send an invite, tap your friend, text your friend. Hey, the Black Podcast is on. We need you on the show. We need you participating. We need you sharing. That's the way that you give back to what we're doing. Because again, we want to make sure that when we're going out finding these guests, this is about making sure our community gets better. Make sure we get the knowledge that we need, and it's about leveraging. So we can't leverage if you keep the information to yourself. So we need to make sure that you are sending the information out. Also, make sure you go to our website, We Are HSBA, and find out more what we're doing in the Black community. But my name is Dr. Sherelle Hobson. Many of you know my background's in education and athletics, and I have the pleasure of having my partner here, Mr. Brian Street.
Yep. I do a lot of stuff. Just a lot of stuff. Um, but I really focus in the and the financial behavior space right now. Um, my background, psychology, social work. But I saw while working in that space that so many of the problems that we deal with, so many of the issues that we face in social services can be reconciled if we just had our finances together. So that's one of my major focuses right now. But also, I do a lot of work with people on mental and emotional empowerment. If you just look at the world today, we got so many people that are having various different episodes, things that are happening, and then it always comes back to their mental health. And it's still to this day, more so than necessary, a taboo topic that lots of people try to stray away from having conversations around. So that's one of my major focus areas. But this is not about me. I can't wait to hear about this young lady that we're going to bring before you today. I always try to learn as little as I can about our guests beforehand because I want to have that genuine, authentic reaction whenever I hear parts of the story. So, without further ado, we bring to you Miss Nikki Spears. How's it going?
It's going well. Excited to
Nice.
be here with you guys.
We are excited to have
I
you.
wasn't paying attention. I thought you said Britney Spears. I'm like, not Britney.
I get that a lot too.
I'm sure. It's like, where'd you get me from? Well, thank you again for being on the Black Podcast. We're so excited to have you learn more about you. Um, we look at all the pictures and the videos, and we like, oh, she's cute, and she got her life is perfect, and her life has just
Oh
been
wow.
just this wonderful journey. But we know that behind every glory is a story, and we want to always start out with, if you could tell us more about where you're from and the dynamics of your family, how you grew up, and then so the audience can really dive into who you are.
Okay, well, where I'm from, let's see if you guys have heard of a small town in East Texas. I'm going to plug in, sorry, known as Karnak, Texas. Can I keep talking and plug in? I'm about to lose power here.
You can
Yeah,
keep
keep on
talking. We're
talking.
here.
Okay, let's see.
And no, we've never heard that play. That's small. That sounds small.
Small town, East Texas, Karnak, Texas. Population now that I've left, probably 499 was 500. I'm just kidding, but small town, and I am the oldest of five children, and I grew up. I was very. I think I was the one that was most sensitive in my family. I cried easily, and I just felt energy early on, of people, and I felt like I had this unique way of connecting with people, just understanding where people were. And so I was the entertainer of my family. Anytime people were down, I would want to come in and, just do something funny to make people laugh, because I realized early in my life, guys, that you know, if I bring the energy, then I could magically change what was happening around me. So I understood that if I was in a good mood, or if I was happy, then maybe I could share that energy with other people. I have one brother. I have three sisters. I'm the oldest, and I grew up with both parents, and that's me.
Well, I love it, and I would say that I felt the same when you talk about just the energy that you
Mhm.
receive. It's like I would drive down the street, and if I see someone that's sad, or someone homeless that's eating out the trash, or and I would just instantly feel like I need to do something about it.
Yeah.
And people would be like, "You are no," my mom was like, "You nosy," and it's like, yes, a little bit it is nosy, but I feel like I always take on what people are feeling.
Uh-huh.
And it's almost like I feel like I can handle it. Like, give me all your burdens. I
Yeah.
can handle it and I can fix it. And I've learned quickly that that's probably not the right answer for a lot of things. But, um, when you have that, it can be a little overwhelming on times if you feel like you can't really do something about, because it's a feeling now that that you're dealing with. And so I can definitely understand that. So just growing up, when you talk about, was there anything, being in a small town, was it predominantly white, black? Was it a mix? Like, what was your environment in that space? And then just talk maybe your journey a little bit going through secondary school, or if you went to college, if you can just kind of talk about that space for us as well.
Predominantly black. And I don't know, I felt like growing up, my parents, they, my parents didn't get along so well. And that caused a lot of, I think early on, some anxiety, a little sadness. And I just wanted them to be happy. And I knew that, just like I said, if you're happy, then you have that ability maybe to share that with other people. And I just wanted both of them to be happy. And a lot of times it felt like they weren't, and
Hmm.
caused a lot of sadness and amongst the children as well. And going into school, I mean, I think I had a pretty good time in elementary school. I can't Middle school and high school, because I grew up in a small town. Middle school and high school was connected. So if you're in junior high, you're going to school with the high school kids. I wasn't the coolest kid in high school.
Hmm.
I don't know if people would agree with that or not, but I was really skinny. That's what I remember. And I was picked on because I was so skinny. My legs were probably this big, and
Hmm.
still are, still are. Um, but I just remember it. It was a way to somewhat escape. Uh, but there were also some challenges in school as well. As far as being was I a really smart student? I don't think I got really great grades. I think I passed,
Yeah,
but
that was me.
yeah, I passed. But you know what? I was so creative. I was
Mhm.
always so creative, and that's the part that stood out with me in high school. I remember my English teacher. She was like, I wrote a story or something. She had given us an assignment, and when she read it, she said, "Wow, you're really good. And I want to send you to this little camp." And it was a camp at a local college not far from us, and I felt really like special, they sent me. But
Yeah.
I didn't believe her, and I had these doubts until I went to college. I went to college for a couple of years at Texas Southern University, in Houston. I didn't finish there, but that's where my first college experience. I had a band scholarship, and going into my English class, my professor also pointed out my writing. So I knew that there was something there because she didn't know my English teacher in high school. You know,
Mhm.
and here is someone else saying the same thing. So I always thought that God had this plan for my life. And I've always felt that way. And I always listened to what he would have me do. Even if you know, I felt very uncomfortable. I always felt like, okay, I need to be obedient. I need to follow that voice and I need to do what he's asking me to do. And that's really what has led my career, is just listening to his voice and understanding my place in this world. And for so long, I really resented my family. I resented my parents, and I blamed them a lot for the things that weren't happening in my life as an adult until
Mm.
I got older and I started to I became a parent myself, and I understood how difficult parenting can be, because every person has their own perception of what's happening. And so as I grew older, I started to appreciate how I grew up. Because
Mm.
if I didn't have the parents I had, I wouldn't have the passion I have today for what I'm doing. And so,
Yeah.
because of my family, I wanted to go into teaching.
Mm.
And I first became a Head Start teacher. And I was connected to that because I had twin girls. I was going through a divorce. And I didn't know what to do with these kids. I was like, I need to find a babysitter or something. And like, uh,
Yeah.
girl, they got a Head Start program down the street. You should enroll them. And I took them and enrolled them, not understanding that God was leading me there, not just for them, but for myself. And so I went in to visit, and these little girls they knew their colors, their pledge, they knew things. I didn't teach them because I didn't know. I was a young parent, I was only 21. And I was like, I didn't teach them that. And when I was fascinated by it. And I remember thinking, this is where I want to be.
Mm.
Education is where I want to be. It wasn't the sexiest thing to do, which that's what I want. I was like, I'm going to be this business person. I'm going to be traveling around. And
Have all this
then,
money.
yeah, making all this money. And then I became a teacher. And that was where my life really began. Walking into that classroom, I knew that's where God wanted me to be.
Mm, 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 mm.
Hmm.
We really appreciate you, just your vulnerability, because we think that we talked about that a little bit earlier before the show. We grew up in this space where, you don't tell people your business, and you got to be
Oh,
a strong Black woman, and you got to be this strong. And so we're not able to save anyone and make any changes in our community if we all just keep our story to ourselves. And so I think that that's a part of our healing and our growth, is when we're able to say, I was in this very dark space. And I talk about that all the time, my vulnerability, and I still have, my mom be like, you just told all your business on the internet. And I be like, it's already in a book anyway, so it
yeah.
don't even matter at this point, whatever. But you got to get to the place in your life where you just feel like, this is my story, this is who I
Yeah.
am. And when we realize that all those little spaces in our lives, good and bad, um, are the reason why we're doing the things that we're doing, and giving back because of our experiences. And I shared with you earlier that my background is in education, and so I grew up, it was about track, and I ran and I loved it. And, I was going to go to the Olympic trials and be this Olympic coach. And then I was going to make travel and make all this money, and I'm going to be the boss of somebody. That was my plan. And, uh, he slowly showed me the classroom as well. And I was like,
Yeah.
that $50,000 was great when you were, when 20. And then you like, okay, so, okay, God, like, I ain't gonna be here very long, am I?
Right.
But I do have a love for, you have to love teaching. It's like some
Hmm.
jobs, even Brian talks about social work, that's not always the best, high paying job, but it's the amount of the students you get to deal with, the stories you get to hear, the lives you get to change. There's nothing that anybody can pay you that, you know, will be
Mhm.
enough of what that feeling feels like. That is just the most rewarding. And those are the things that we continue to do, and make sure that we're pouring back into our community in that space. So when you talk about your journey, and you know, I know you mentioned a lot of sadness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of and I remember growing up, and I grew up with my mother and father as well, always supportive. My parents been married for a very long time, traveled, you know, we were military, so we lived in all these different places. But I always had this sense of anxiety. I've always had this sense of darkness,
Mm.
that nobody really knew about, you know, and I would say that I probably didn't either. But what helped me mask my anxiety, darkness, was the fact that I was in track. So that was like my mask. And I was
Mhm.
really good. So everybody knew me from running, and, you know, I was on a scholarship, and give the baton to her, and I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna walk people down, you know, like
Yeah.
that's what I was known for. And so I didn't really have to get to know myself. And then as track got pulled away, and I started, you know, I started coaching and teaching, and I would pour into them. And then I was like, okay, God, like, and what else you
Yeah.
asked me to do? And so then it was a season of just sitting. And that's when I really had to learn like about myself. And I said, oh my God, you know, one of the hardest things for me was forgiving myself, you know, the things I said to myself,
Mhm.
you know, I wasn't light enough. I remember buying light, lightening lotion, you know, to put on me so I could be a little bit lighter, because that was what was cuter then. And then
Yeah.
everybody's like, "You already yellow," but I was like, "Can I be yellower?" You know, like it was just, you know, just
Yeah.
searching this anxiety. And so people that don't deal with that don't really understand. It's like, slow down, don't be so anxious. And it's like,
Yeah.
ugh, I don't know how to do that, you know. But I want you to talk about just that space of when you're going through that, because we know that now as you're older, what anxiety looks like and what that feeling feels like, that space. Did you know you was in a dark space during this time as you transitioned from being in, like, you know, secondary, going to college, or, you know, moving on to your adult life? Did you know that you was in a dark space then, or was it just like, you know, you're functioning in dysfunction because you just like, that's how we roll, we just move on and we just continue life?
I think I knew I was in a dark space because I broke the rules. Like, you talk about you don't tell. We're taught not to say what's happening in our home. I broke that rule, and I would talk to people who would listen, other relatives, and they would tell me that's not right, or it's wrong, or just made me feel that it wasn't right. What I was seeing, what I was witnessing, was not good, and it was. I didn't know how to get out of it. I was stuck, and I felt like that was going to be my life forever. There were times that I didn't want to be on this earth. I mean, I didn't want to be here. It was so much to bear because we talked about taking on other people's stuff, and I did that. I wanted my mom to be happy. I wanted my dad to be okay. I wanted my siblings to be okay. So I would take it all on, and then on top of that, I had my own junk that I
Mm.
hadn't resolved, and so it stayed that way for a long time until I'm trying to remember when I started to slowly come out of it. And it wasn't until I got married, and because I brought this, can you imagine bringing this into a relationship? And I had young children that watched me uh, struggle with this, and in turn they struggle too because they watched me. And I remember my husband coming to me one day with a book. It was called The Success Principles. See, I didn't read. I was like, I didn't read. I wasn't a reader. I mean, it just didn't appeal to me. But that's where my life started to turn, was this book he brought me. It was called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And he said, Nikki, just read the first page of the book. And I looked at the book, it was like this thick. I'm like, that's all I'm gonna read, because I'm not reading that whole book. And I read the first page, and that's, my life just shifted, because the first page talked about taking responsibility for your life. And he says something about, and now when I go out and speak, I read the first page every time. It changed my life. I'm like, everything, it's like my world turned from black and white to in living color. You know, it's like I figured out what I had been doing wrong for so many years. And I blamed my parents for everything. I blamed my upbringing, when now I needed to take responsibility for where I was. And once I took responsibility, it's like, okay, I'm in control now. They're no longer in control. So it's the power of taking responsibility that really flipped my world upside down. And I just wanted to share that message with everybody. And so I went out and got copies of this book, and I was passing it around to anybody, everybody. And what I realized is that people weren't ready for that message, or it didn't resonate with them the way it did with me. And I realized that that message was really for me in that time that I was in. And so that really changed my life, because I was a blamer and a complainer, which kept me in low level energy. I was victim, and I didn't know how to rise to another level. So I stayed in low level energy. And when I talk about low level energy, people think, oh, well, are you mean? You know, no, I wasn't. I was just feeling hopeless, you know, shame, guilt, you know, all these icky feelings. And I felt like I was stuck in the mud. And I'm like, life has to be better than this. You talked about putting on a mask. My mask was to go out and entertain, because that's what I had done in my family, you know. And so I would go out and be silly. And it got to a point where it wasn't funny anymore, because you're too old, girl, to be acting like that. So it wasn't, life wasn't, I couldn't make it funny anymore. And that's the way I used to deal with it.
Wow, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to you. Like you dropped it in there. Like I didn't feel like being here anymore. Like
Yeah.
so many people feel like that, and they don't have anybody that they can go to. That's why I mentioned earlier, like just the mental health piece that I work with. There is a young lady that I've been working with for a few months now, and she's been in a dark place, but her difficulty is taking responsibility. Her
Mm,
difficulty is being self-aware that maybe, the words of Will Smith, it may not be your fault that you're in
but
that
you take
situation, but it
responsibility.
dang sure is your responsibility to get out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
you can sit here and point fingers, woe is thou, like this person, that person, and the third, but they're not going to get you out of it. Pointing fingers at them is not going to get you out of it, and that's the power of it. And that's like it's like that double-edged sword. It's easy to blame someone else, but honestly, it's easier if you realize that it's in your hands. You're the only one that can change it. So I love that you mentioned that, because a lot of people, whenever they have a difficulty in life, or they're diagnosed with some type of disorder or whatever it may be, they internalize that and act as if like that controls who I am. But no, you have that. That is not you. You have that. So that means I can actually manipulate it and live my
Yeah.
life differently than what people who internalize it actually live. So that responsibility piece is just so key in every aspect of life.
Yeah. The funny thing is, Brian, people don't realize that.
Hmm.
People don't. It's a lot of people, especially in our community. I think we've become accustomed to blaming someone outside of ourselves for the things in our lives that we don't like. You know, so we've become that's just what we do. And so now we have to start with our kids being young, having them start to take responsibility. Like, that's not me, babe. That's your thing. You know, because we want to blame our teachers, the system, or we want to blame someone else when it really keeps us in bondage when we do that. So,
Mhm.
breaking out of that really saved me. It really did. And I share that with people. And it's like, really, people, some people come up to me, they're like, people don't know this. Or some people, it's a lot of people will come to me and say, that changed my life. That little piece of taking responsibility changed my life, because I realized you give people power, or you give a situation power over you when
Mhm.
you're blaming, right? But when we take control, boy, it's so much that we can do with the problem once we take responsibility for it.
Yeah, and I was watching an episode. There's this gentleman you may know him, guy by the name of Patrick Bet David, and he has a YouTube channel called Valuetainment. So it's
Hmm.
entertainment mixed with value that he's bringing. Anyways, he was interviewing Roland Martin. I'm sure you've heard of Roland Martin
Hmm.
before. So he was interviewing Roland Martin, and the name or the title of the show was "You Continue to Play Victim" or something like that. So
Hmm.
initially, I'm like, man, this dude don't know the struggle. So like, he gonna come here talking about something you can. But it's real, like, and that's one of the quarrels that I have being in the social work space. So many people in our space just, I'm gonna go and protest and tell that man to change my situation instead of me taking accountability. Let me do something to change the situation. So the guy was like, Patrick was like, so how many years has it been since you had access to this, to that, the third? And one aspect of things, yes, there are systemic things in place that are making it more difficult. But how long are we going to sit here and ask somebody else to change those systems? Like, it comes to a point where no longer do I ask. I'm going to go and create. And
Right.
and that's just the whole notion of taking accountability and taking responsibility, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to rescue you. So
You got
are
to
you
be
going
your
to sit
own
here?
superhero, right?
Exactly. That is it. That is it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that is one of the hardest spaces, like you're saying, Brian. People just, because it's easier to say, you know what, it's because of this person or it's because
Mhm.
of this. But I feel like it's also healthy to acknowledge the space that you're in. You just can't be in that space for a very long time.
Hmm.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and it's one of the things, and I'm sure you can relate to it, Miss Spears. Like, being in spaces where you're like the oddball, like it's like you're, like you were just mentioned, like, you guys don't realize this. Whenever I went into my social work program, and I'm sitting here in a social work class talking about starting businesses, and they're
Mm.
like, dude, are you in the right program? Like, what are you talking about? So thankfully, I had a couple of professors that understood my, my focus. But until you take that alternative route and stop just allowing the status quo to just be, there was even
Mhm.
a point in time where I had this brand. I was thinking of branding, a certain part of my services, the new status quo. So we just have to get to a point where we just get tired of cycles continuing to cycle and cycle and
Yes.
cycle. Um,
Yeah.
Dick
I think that's so
Gregory,
important. That's so
yeah.
you talk about these cycles, this generational thing that we have going on. We need to look at, and I think COVID really forced us all to look in the mirror and to think about, okay, so how am I showing up? And
Hmm.
are all these things true that I learned from Big Mama? All these beliefs I have about people, about myself, about the world. Is that true? And so I learned to question myself, because we all have these beliefs that we grew up with, like all this group, they're bad, or these kind of people we stay away from, or this situation. So I started to question myself. Just because people are having a bad day, Nikki, doesn't mean it's about you. Stop taking it so personally. I really talked to myself that way throughout the day, and it really did force me to reconsider some of the beliefs I had. And I think COVID was a good time for us to stop and think about that. What are these things, these beliefs, these values that we have, and are they serving us well in this moment? And do we want to take that to the next generation of people?
Yeah, that's true. Um, it's what do they call it? Breaking generational curses.
Yeah,
Like this same young lady that I mentioned earlier that I work with. I remember when we very first started working together, and she mentioned how she wants to break the cycle of things that were passed down to her. She doesn't want to pass them down to her child. And over time, her being on the roller coaster, she started to do some of those exact things that she said, I never want to pass this down. And I'd have to bring her back to self awareness. Like, do you
yeah,
realize what you just said? Do you realize what you just did? And I'm so thankful. You mentioned the book by Jack Canfield. I'm so thankful that these types of books exist because
yeah,
I forced her to sit down the other day and just read like the first paragraph in a self help book. I forget who it was by, but she read it, and then I read some from a book that I have. And then she received a notification on her phone that was the exact same message that both of us had just read in separate
look at
books.
that.
I'm like, do you realize like that's a sign? You need
Yeah,
to really internalize this, this stuff that can help you change the course of your life. But no, we don't want to take responsibility.
right, exactly.
So when you were talking about now, you got into teaching, you finally you accepted the whole like, okay, I'll be in the classroom, I'll enjoy my summers and my spring breaks and my Christmas break and all that kind of stuff. Um, so when you was in that space, like, did you feel like, okay, this is my stop? You have your teachers that stand up in the classroom. You always have these meetings, and it's like, let's congratulate, Miss Pickle for teaching for 45 years. And I remember sitting in there thinking, I will not be doing that for 45 years. I'm not going to be doing anything of the same thing for 45 years. But I mean, what was that space like for you when you got into the teaching? Did you feel like this was your final stop, or did you know that there was more? Because you're doing a whole lot of other things that's outside of teaching, right? So when you're sitting in these meetings with everybody's, teacher of the year, and this is all they want to do for the rest of their life until they can do it no more. What was your thoughts during that time?
Uh, so when I became a Head Start teacher, I knew I wouldn't be doing that forever. I always looked at the next thing, like, oh, can I be a director? Can I do this? But I think God pushed me because my husband was constantly moving with his job, and every time he moved, it required that I do something different. And so, if
Mm,
you look at my resume, either you're going to say, "Wow, I love all of her experiences," or you're going to say, "This girl never stays anywhere more than 2 years."
mm.
But I know when I know when I'm done. I know when the assignment is over, and
Yeah.
I feel like I always related
Say
to.
that again, because people don't know when their
Yes,
time is
I
please.
know
saying
when
things too freaking long.
the
Do something
assignment,
else.
hey, you don't, guys, you don't have to stay in a job for 30 years anymore. We can do lots of things. It's not one thing that we do. And so I knew when my time was up. It's like Quantum Leap. Do y'all remember that show, Quantum Leap? That's how I feel. My career has been. I knew when it was time to leave because God would show me a new door and I would go through it. I wasn't scared to go through it. But there are a lot of people that that door be wide open and they like, I've been here. I'm not
Close
going
it.
to do this. They want, but they're asking for more, but they won't go through the door.
Mm.
And so I've realized all my life that it's something more for me to do. And God has shown me that. And that's why I showed up here in the moment that I'm in now, is because I walked through those doors that he opened for me. And I wasn't scared because I knew that that's what he had. And, that's what he had, for my life. And I wasn't scared to do it.
Um,
That's real.
and I love that you said that. I tell people all the time that, you know, uh, you know, you have to graduate from just praying and start
Mhm.
asking God to prepare you, because we pray for a lot of things that we're not ready for. And so you talk about that. We're like, we want more money. I want more stuff. Well, sometimes more money may mean more of your time that you have to sacrifice,
Right,
more
right,
sacrifices that have to be made. Do you really want more? Because we're continuing to ask. And like you said, the door can be wide open and you're like, ooh, I know I asked for that, but is there another way that I can have, you still want what's on the other side of the door, but you don't want to go to the other side because it may be those sacrifices you have to make. You may
right.
have to build some relationships. You may have to go and repair some relationships. So you just never know. It's like the unexpected. Okay, you asked me to go into this, and now you have me doing something else. Um,
Right.
so I realized that gift of um, I guess, wanting to do more, wanting to be more, striving, like you said, it's like, oh, I'm on to something different. I'm doing something else. It was almost feeling like when I would have these conversations with other people, and I'm like, y'all not thinking like that? They're like, no, I love clocking in, clocking out. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I'm like, how are y'all doing this? Because I can't do it.
Yeah.
Um, that is truly a gift. I feel like to have being an entrepreneur or even
It
being in a space
definitely
that you
is.
thinking about other things.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself in a space of always trying to explain to people what you were doing, or people ever questioning, like, okay, Nikki, why are you doing something else now? Like, or would you always in a space people supported you and just, went with
I
the flow?
don't know if they actually supported me. I don't know. I don't remember questions. They just thought that's what Nikki did. I talk. I mean, I was surprised at what I'm doing right now. I was surprised by it, but everybody like, Nikki, girl, we knew you were going to do something. We knew you were going to do that. So they're not surprised by what I do at all. I'm inspired by me, but everybody else thinks that that's just who I am. But I believe that there's certain people that's wired for this type of work, and I have to respect people that's not, and they know they're not, because everybody, like you were talking about, is not an entrepreneur. You really, it's a different world. It's not where you have these walls of protection around you like a pet every so often, and you know what to expect. I mean, I wake up on days and it's one day I'm super busy, and then the next day is crickets, and you wonder, oh Lord, so you have to really have a lot of faith to do this kind of work. And I'm not saying that people that don't do it don't have faith. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying you really have to trust, trust in the work that you're doing, trust in God, because I always have to have something bigger than me, because I know if I don't have something bigger than me like God, then I feel like I'm going to just drown, and just doubt that we have, so yeah, it's having that belief that this is where I'm supposed to be, or just knowing where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. And it's okay for that to take time, right? And I think that
Yeah.
a lot of times people are like, I need to know. And I work in the college now, that you mentioned earlier, but they come and it's like, I got to have it all figured out. And it's like, well, no, you don't have to have it all figured out. It
You
takes
don't.
time. But when you're in that space of speaking or education, you're always going to have that teacher background. So you're always want to give them a lesson, take a
Mhm.
seat. Let me tell you about life. You know, um, it, it's a beautiful thing when you're able to give back and help people or students or whoever, um, when you tell your story and they can start discovering who they are, based off of, okay,
Mhm.
hey, start spending more time by yourself. Start, really understanding who you are and what you like. I realized for so long in my life that I just function and dysfunction. So when I got to jobs that where I wasn't micromanaged, when I got into relationships where, you know, it's 5 years and you still love me like that. This is, like, you ain't sick of me yet. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to uh, start to adapt to what God is trying to show you, the new.
Yeah.
This is what your life can be. But when you're always in the back of your head, when you come from dark places, you think like, I'm waiting for something ain't gonna be right. This is way too good to be true. And you're searching for that thing. And sometimes you miss being very present because you're trying to look ahead,
Mhm.
and you skip where you're at. And I tell my college students that all the time, that if I had any regrets about college, it would be that I wasn't present. I ran track, the people knew me, I had the personality. But if I tell you that I remember where I went with the friends, no. If I tell you, do I remember when they're like, oh, when we ran across the street at Whataburger, do you remember when we did that? And it's like, no. But I'm in all the pictures and all that stuff. So I wish I was more present, you know. But I was so focused on, like you were talking about, just the next move and checking
Yeah.
the box. And I remember after my brother passed that the grieving counselor that I was speaking with, she said, um, okay, you've checked all the boxes. When are you going to start living?
Mm.
And I was like, when all the boxes are checked, like, we checked them all already, like.
Yeah.
And so she's like, what box? What are you trying? I'm like, well, she's like, you have a bachelor's, you got your master's, you got your doctorate, so you done checked all those. So just, have you enjoyed any of those yet? It's like, no, because I done set another goal for something else, and so I just want to be more intentional. I'm trying to be, more intentional in my life, and more intentional with the relationships that I build, more intention with the conversations I have, people I allow in my life and my time. Um, because we can go through, on to the next, on to the next, on to the
Yeah.
next. Sometimes we skip that present time. Have you ever found yourself in that space of like,
I have, and I say that to my twin daughters. I was a young mom, and I feel like I wasn't emotionally present because I was going through my own. It's like I was going through my own fog and trying to figure it out. And what I realized too is that when we try not to be something, like I'm not going to be like my parents, I'm not going to do this, you invite more of that energy into your life. Like Brian was saying, he was like, I forgot what he said, but I was tying it back to, what, I tried my best not to be like my parents. And here I was seeing the same patterns of behavior. And I'm thinking, how did that happen when I said, when I was like trying not to? So the more we try not to, the more we say we're not going to do it, we invite that into our lives. And I've realized that. So instead of talking about what I'm not going to do or what I don't want to do, I talk about what I want to see.
yeah,
What do you want to see? What do you want to be, rather
mm,
than what you don't want to be?
yeah, yeah. And you can spend a lot of time in that space. I don't want to be this, I don't want to be that. But like you said, what do you want to do? So
Exactly.
let's fast forward a little to where to you went through that stage, and then we're going to work our way up to where you're at now. When did you know this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now?
Okay, so I did a lot of things in education, had a lot of different roles in education, and each role I feel like I was gaining something new, some new experience. And so my last role in education was that I was a principal, and as a principal, I knew that I needed to shape the culture in this school. And culture had been, I was passionate about culture from the moment, when I was a little girl. I wouldn't have called our family culture, but that's basically what it was. It was like I was really studying my parents, my siblings, and how do I fix this? And so I took all of that into every role I had. And so here I am as principal, and I'm like, okay, how do we align our values, our goals, our beliefs when people are all over the place? So how do we do that? So I brought in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
Mm,
working really good. It was going well. Then I get a call from the people from the no, what is it called, the Leader in Me, and they say you cannot use these principles from the book unless you become part of our program, and we just didn't have the money to do it. And so I remember, talking to the district and We're going back and forth. I said, look, I bought books for all the teachers. We can't use it. They're like, Nikki, if they're telling you can't use it, you can't use it. So they were telling us we had to strip everything down, like off the walls, because we had outfitted our school with these principals. Kids were using the concepts, everything. So I remember sitting in my car on a Sunday evening, and I was scrolling through my phone on my LinkedIn page, and my thumb happened to land on John Gordon's profile. John Gordon is an author, and I had just added all these authors like a few weeks prior to that. And one of my teachers had given me the book, The Energy Bus. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to message this person. I'm going to ask, so I sent him a quick message, and I said something like, hi, I'm an elementary school principal, would love to create curriculum around your book. I wasn't thinking anything bigger. Okay. I wasn't thinking anything like that. It was just my simple little school and something we could use for my school. I sent that message on LinkedIn. I didn't tell anybody what I'd done because I thought it was a little crazy. I said, Nikki, you're crazy. The next morning I got up, I went to my LinkedIn page, and there was a message, and it said something like, thank you so much for caring. Send me a one pager of your idea. And this is the part where I knew God had sent me to that page. He said, we've been waiting on the right fit. And so I did a little bit better than writing a one pager. I flew out to Florida where he was, and I put together a presentation. And I took the things that we had done with the Seven Habits, that book. I took all of that and what I would do with his book. And he looked at me and he said, you know what, you can do this. However, I can't pay you. And I thought, what? I'm thinking I'm going to be a millionaire and you can't pay me. So I go home, and my husband and I, we talk about it. And he said, you know what, Nikki, you've been passionate about this. This is an opportunity. I think you should just, a great opportunity for you. I think you should just go ahead and go for it. At the time, I was making $93,000 a year. So that was going to be a big dent in our household income. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I felt like that's where God was pulling me, because it was a lot of things, not just that, it was other things happening at the same time. So I knew it was time for me to quantum leap from the principal role into wherever God was taking me. So as I got involved in this work, I left my job in 2016, and as I got more involved in creating curriculum, it became bigger. It became where he would ask me, hey, do you want to go over here and speak to a group? And I'm thinking, no, but I wasn't going to say that because of course I'm thinking this is from God. I don't ever look at things, coming from man. God uses man to do his work. So I never like, oh my God, I can't believe that this person, I never felt like that. I already knew God was using this person for me to do what I was doing. But I felt like when I started speaking, that's when I came to life. And I was like, I never saw myself being a motivational speaker, never. But as I do it, in my family, they like, Nikki, they're just like, that's something yeah, we're not surprised at all. They're not surprised. I'm surprised at what I do every single day. I get to wake up and do talk about the things I love, and that is, how do we create a positive life? Taking responsibility is powerful. I talk about energy and energy levels and victim, how we stay at victim and low level energy, and how do we get out of that. So it's helping people rise above, to see the world, to see themselves in a different way, so that they have a different experience. Because I know, I described to you how I felt as a young girl and how I feel now. I'm just so grateful, to God for taking me out of that space and bringing me here. And then I can share that with others, that if you are in a dark space, you have the ability to come out of it. And Brian, like you were saying earlier, it's all about you taking responsibility for your life. And once you're able to do that, now you can go anywhere you want to go. So now I travel the country sharing my message, and it's just been amazing. And this will be 7 years in July that I left my principalship.
I thought are you unmuting yourself?
Am I mute?
Yeah,
No, I'm
Oh,
saying Brian,
yeah,
he's like,
yeah. I was I was taking care of YouTube issue, but
oh,
that's the thing, man. Like, I look back to 2019 was when I gave up the 9 to 5 or the traditional work, so to say, and I dove headfirst into entrepreneurship. And it wasn't because I saw millions. Like, it was
yeah,
because I saw me being the solution to a lot of problems. And I had already created a track record of being a solution to those problems, but now I can focus on doing it at a larger scale. And it was difficult. Like, it was so
yeah.
difficult. And I would look back. I had 3 degrees, 2 bachelor's, a master's degree, 2 years of doctoral studies, and I literally, to this day, the director of the social work program at the University of Southern Miss will tell me, Brian, when you're ready, you got a position waiting for you. Like, I have a university position waiting for me, but I'm out here chasing, this entrepreneur. Like, it's bigger than me. It's not just about me.
Yeah, I
And
feel
when
it.
you, yeah, like when you look at the lives that you're going to impact, and you have that faith within yourself that I'm gonna get what's meant for me. Like,
Hmm.
let me pour in, and I'm gonna get what's mine. It's gonna come to me. But so many people, they don't see that. It's just all about me, me, me. And when it's all about you, you decrease your
That's all you
blessing.
get. Yep, that's all you
Yeah,
get.
exactly. So, just listening to all the way back towards the beginning of today's session, today's episode, just you saying how you were in this space like unwillingly, but like now you know you're meant to be in the space. That's typically the way it happens when you're following your purpose. And it's
Yeah,
just so sad that not many people actually look to follow their own purpose. They look to see what other people are doing. Let me do that. Let me try that. Let me be like him. Let me be like her. No, look in the mirror and ask yourself, what value do I bring? And how can I utilize that value, connect myself with people like this gentleman that you connect with yourself with, and you never know where it's going to take you. Lives that it's going to impact. So I'm just so thankful that we were able to have you here to share
yeah.
this, not only with our audience but with us.
Oh,
Like I said,
thank
I
you.
don't dig too deep. I don't dig too deep into what you've done. So just listening to you, I'm like, dang, I can't wait to do something with her at another
Yeah,
level. Because I never thought about the whole motivational speaking thing, but I was going out presenting in Miami when I was working as a foster parent support specialist. I would present at these
mhm.
mega churches on the importance of being a foster parent. And every time I would finish presenting, my coworkers were like, "Oh my goodness, Brian, that was so good! Like, you like really captivated them." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Did what I do," and they were like, "You should consider being a motivational speaker." I'm like, "What is that even?" So I finally went back to the office and I googled like motivational speakers, and I'm like, "They make this kind of money?" Maybe. So,
maybe
you
I
know, I,
should speak.
Yeah, so I got into the space not necessarily, and I hate it when people call me a motivational speaker because it kind of puts you in a box. But I embraced the fact that they wanted to put me in front of certain individuals to motivate them. And whenever I
Yeah,
would go and deliver a speech or give a presentation, and then weeks down the line, or even years down the line, hey B, you remember that time you came and spoke at this school? Well, it worked. The kids' grades went up. We were taken
oh,
off of the red list. Like that. That's like
it.
that's why you do
That's
it.
it. That's how you
That's
know. That's how you know you're in the right space. Is because I know when I hit that stage before I even go on uh, even tonight, I just say, God, make this about you and not about me. I want Him to show up in everything that I do, because it's when we get on stage or whatever we do and we make it about ourselves, that's when it becomes scary. That's when we become doubtful. But when we know that God got this, you can get out there and do and make a few mistakes, and that was meant to be, and you move on from that. And so I'm excited to meet the both of you. I mean, you guys are rocking it out too. I can't wait to talk more.
Definitely, definitely. Let me ask you this because I was asked this before. Um, it was when I was working on my master's degree, and I was speaking all around the state at the time. And there was this young lady that was in my cohort, and she wanted to become a speaker. And you can tell that like she wanted the title, so on and so forth. And she was like, "Hey B, like I was just wondering, like when you go and do your speeches, like how do you prepare? Do you like have this outline, so on and so forth?" I'm like, "Why? Why do it comes from here? Like it comes from here." And when it comes from here, you may have a couple of bullet points that you want to refer back to just so you don't miss, but it all comes from here. And when it's not about you and it's about who you're pouring into, you don't need this outline. You don't need, no, like, know who it is that you're speaking to, know why it is you're speaking to them, and bring it from your heart. Like you said, if you mess up, it don't matter. Like, it's for you all. It's not about me. It's not an ego thing for me.
Mhm.
So I love that you mentioned that because so many people get so caught up in being perfect and having it script. No, like if you ever see me walk in front of an audience with a script, something is wrong with me. Like that's just not what it do.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I first started. I had some friends, they were like, Nikki, why don't you present in front of us first and we'll give you feedback? I'm like, no, I want to be surprised with what I do. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to even know what I'm going to do. You know, I
Yeah.
want it to be a surprise. So I'm like you, but I've seen people who have a whole outline, they practice in front of the mirror. I don't want any of that because I want to show up authentic. I want
Mhm.
them to feel the real me. I don't want them to feel like, oh man, she reading off something. You know,
Mhm.
I don't know what story I'm going to share. Sometimes I get way too personal, you know, but I can feel the audience and I know
Hmm.
what they need to hear at that moment. And
Yeah.
anytime I'll share it. I don't care what it is. I'm going to share it because somebody needs to hear it. And then it helps them have the courage to share their story because then they realize they're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's it.
that's what we do, but
That's
everybody's not meant to do this work, and I respect that. God, you know, calls us to do different things, and so when we're pointing at everybody else and saying, I want to do that, I want, maybe that's not for you. I want to be like Whitney Houston. That's what I thought I was going to like
I thought I
singing,
was
you know.
gonna be Michael Jordan.
Right, but that wasn't what
I
God
thought
had.
I was gonna be Flo Joe, but you know.
That was my thing. I want to be like the entertain. I wanted to dance. That's what I was like, man, I wish I could dance. That wasn't my thing, you know. So
Yeah.
this is what God gave me, and I'm gonna use it, and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna do it well.
Absolutely. You know,
Mm.
it's always funny when you go on that journey because I remember when I was coaching, I was teaching, and my dad said, you know, you're winning all these championships and stuff, and you need to start practicing. You know, when they're interviewing you and they're asking you, Cam, you know, the ESPN people are gonna be calling you. I'm like, ESPN ain't calling me. These people are not about to call me. I don't need to know how to talk to nobody. And so he was like, okay, you know, you want to do your own thing. You don't want to listen. And I was like, I'm a coach. I'll make sure my athletes shine. As long as I get them ready for the interview, nobody's worrying about talking to me. And so when I got on this journey and
You
God
got the
was like,
call.
yeah, he's like, puts me in this auditorium talking to people. I'm like, I don't want to be up here, you know? And because in my head, it was like the best speakers were loud and they sprint across the room and they're, you know, they're doing all these things. And I'm like, that's not my personality. So maybe I don't need to be speaking. But God said, I need you to speak the way that you're supposed to be speaking.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, be somebody else because you think that's what you're, you know, who you're supposed to be looking like or mimic or whatever. And so, you know, when you can really own your own space, you know, and when you own your own space, that means it's like I own all the good things about me and I own all the bad things about me, you know. And I think that's the space that I love because in that space, I stay so connected, but then everyone that I attract either helps me in those spaces that I need help in, or they make me better in the spaces that I'm good in. You know, it's like God
Yeah,
just really orchestrates everything perfect for me.
yeah,
And so, you know, even as me and Brian, when we started to develop our you know, our business and everything, it was like, I'm about to cut him off, completely. Because he is not working fast enough. He's not doing anything that I'm asking him to do. I need it quick. We need this up and running today. And so he's like, no, it's not going to be today. And so, when you learn, but that's the beauty of our relationship, with our business and everything that we do, we know
Yeah.
each other. So it's like, okay, well, what you need? Okay, it's gonna take time. Okay, fine. He knows I'm gonna ask how much time, but he knows me enough. But you have to, when you get in those spaces, you get around other people that help to bring you up, and we, as speakers, as leaders, and those who continue to pour, we need people pouring into us. We need,
Yeah.
to constantly make sure that we are
That's important.
connected in alignment. So what do you do um, when everybody's pulling, right? You've been pouring into this, you've been pouring into that. How do you keep yourself to where it's like, let me make sure Nikki's good?
Girl,
Do
I
you
got to listen to some inspiration. I got to spend time with God. I can listen to songs and it'll bring me some inspiration. In the morning I get up, I put on my music and I'm singing and reading, just taking time for me to fill me up, to fuel me up, because you're right. People will take from you if you allow them to. But I've also learned how to conserve my energy and
mm.
where to give it to, right?
So
I
tell
mean,
us how to do that. Tell us how to conserve some of that energy, not to
you
give
have to
everybody everything.
realize that everybody's going to have their own set of struggles, and God didn't mean for you to take theirs. There's a lesson in theirs for them, not for you. And we need to empower people to feel like I can handle this. But what we want to do, like Brian said earlier, is we want to be the superhero of everybody's story, and we need to allow them to be the superhero. Even with our own children, we need to allow them to go through it. Now, it doesn't mean that, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with you, I'm not going to help you. It means that I need you to feel that whatever it is you need to feel, to learn whatever you need to learn, and it's not mine. And you have to literally tell yourself it's not yours, it's for them. And so I call it giving them back their pencils and allowing them to write their own stories, because I already got my pencil and I got a big story to write, and I can't be writing all these stories at the same time. So that's how I've learned to conserve my energy.
And that's when you are in that space of always wanting to give it, sometimes you're like, am I being selfish? It's like, it's okay to be selfish sometimes, when it's time to take your time, because that's not really selfish, because you're just allowing yourself to be able to give more when you are able to replenish everything that you've already given. So it's not a selfish move. It's selfish if you continue to pour from places that you're empty from. So
You
Right.
you
know what
have to be
though?
able to take. Hmm.
You know what though, Sherelle? You remember
What,
that coaching program? You remember that
which
coaching
one?
program, that book, and the what 27 manifestations of something.
Mm.
Selfish
Mm-hmm.
was one of them. A lot of times we look at selfish in a negative lens, but self-centered is like the negative one. But selfish
Yeah,
is I'm just going to
selfish.
focus on
That's
self for
good.
now. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember whenever I was reading that book, I was like, how can selfish be something positive? And then I read it. I was like, I get it. It's like giving yourself, because you can't be for others when you
If you
aren't
don't take care.
together yourself. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you made reference to that, because it always brings me back to where we have to have times where we focus on the self, and
Mm-hmm.
only after we've done that. It's just like, how they say on an airplane, like put your mask on before, like you
Yeah.
got to take care of yourself first. And I think when it comes to myself, and I want everybody to kind of listen to this. Like, don't listen to Nikki Spears. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Dr. Hobson as it pertains to how you should be selfish, how you should practice self
Right.
care. You got to
Right.
figure out what works for you. One thing that I do, I have, and I have the book right here, the Book of Mormon. I have these Mormon girls that like come through the community. Can we share a word of Christ with you? And I'm like, okay. I go out there with them and I challenge them because most people don't know anything about Christ, or they are just, I don't know, but a lot of people just fold or just like dismiss them or whatever. But I welcome them and I challenge them. I make sure that they tell me how they know what they know, why you believe it the way that you believe it. Have you actually sought up? Like, I really like that self care to me. Like, we're
Yeah.
talking about Christ, but we're gonna get deep. I'm not gonna let you come here and make you feel like you know
You
everything.
be
You're
the
gonna come and
surface level
demythologize me.
Christian.
I'm like, I'm going to like I'm going to make you do your work when you come out here. So little things like that, taking the time to say, okay, I'm not going to work right now. You know, I'm gonna let these girls, or sometimes it's a few guys or a couple of guys, and I'm going to talk about Christ, and like we're gonna get in there. So figure out what works for you as an individual, especially those who are in the entrepreneurial space, because it can drive you crazy. It
Yeah.
can drive you insane. Like you mentioned earlier, some days you can be extremely busy. You got profits coming in, so on and so forth. The next day, hey man, am I gonna make any money today?
Yes.
Like, are any clients gonna pick up the phone?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you got to figure out what works for you.
I like the what works for you because it's definitely mental health, mental wellness. When you're taking care of yourself, it's not a one size fit all model. So when you go out and you're talking about, self care and mental health, it really does require self awareness. You need to be aware of what is it that's going, because I get up in the morning. Yeah, music is good for me. Walking may be good for me, but that may not do anything for you.
Mhm.
So what is it that you need to do for yourself that takes you away from all the drama that's in the world, all the distractions that we have in this world? What is
Mhm.
it that you can do for yourself so that you feel, I always take it back to, what do you like doing? What did you like doing as a kid? That just made you feel carefree, whatever that was, because we forget to just have fun and just
Yeah.
be silly.
Yeah.
I recently was I was type 2 diabetic, and now I transitioned to type 1, which has been like a crazy world for me because it's constant monitoring myself. I don't know if you guys are familiar with diabetes or not. People won't know I'm diabetic. They won't know because I go out, boy, I'm going to be, and I celebrate life even more now. It's like once you get older, it's like, and things like this happen, it's like, I'm just going to have fun. Forget what y'all think about me. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to have fun. And
Mhm.
just think if you could do that when you were like in your 20s, right?
Yeah.
Why, start doing that now. I tell my daughters, like, just be free, have fun. Stop making life so serious. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
I laugh at myself all the time. I am so funny. I crack myself up. So
Mhm.
crack yourself up.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And that's what we just talked about earlier. Just, if I could take back anything or do anything over, it would be more present, have
Yeah.
more fun when I was young. I was like, fun. I'm trying to go to college. I'm trying to do this, that. Like I have stuff to do. I don't have time for fun, and so people were like, they out living their best life. And I'm like, look, I'm looking for the next best move. I ain't got time for this. So
Did you think that
now
was like part of finding your purpose? Like that next move was part of what am I supposed to be doing, God? Oh, it must be this. And you thought it was like a position or something?
it
Is that
it it, it was almost like a feeling of I'm supposed to be doing more. Like I
huh?
knew God, um, but you when you really get to experience His presence, when you really get to know me. So it was a different conversation as I matured in my growth. But um, it, I always had this in my feel. I always had a feeling where you're at right now. There's something bigger. There's something
Mhm.
bigger. There's something else. But I didn't know what it was. I just knew that where I was currently at, like, I'm supposed to be doing
Wasn't
something
there.
else. But if I would have been a little more like matured in my spiritual, you know, journey, I could have said back then, wherever you're supposed to be is going to be there. Be present right now because that's going to be there. where you're at right now is going to be there. But at the time, it was like, I needed to be there right now. Whatever it is, it needs to happen right now because I can feel that I'm supposed to be doing something else.
I can definitely relate to that because it was like no matter where I was, it felt, what am I supposed to be doing? It was
Doing.
always something else. I
Mhm.
think that's God putting that fire under you, though. If you didn't have that, you probably wouldn't be where you are right now. So
Right.
even though you feel like you weren't present, maybe you shouldn't have been present at that time because you needed that fire under you to keep you moving. Because that's what I think. I know even now, people talk about meditation. Oh my God, I don't have time. It's like I'm ready to, when I jump up out of bed, I'm ready to go to work. And I'm sitting there like, girl, you wasting time up
Yeah,
here. You
that's
know,
me too. That's
you
me
need to be on that
too.
computer.
I know. They said take
Whatever.
yoga. I was in a yoga class and the lady said just breathe and relax. Don't think about nothing. I'm looking around like, dang, all these people are relaxed. How long have we got to be in
Yeah,
this mud? I'm
you
ready
got
to move
fire,
on to
girl.
something
It's
else.
God got fire and he's making you move and that's the way he does it. So you know what? I'm okay. I can listen to a meditation while I'm working, but I'm not gonna sit there and close my eyes and be still. I'm just gonna like, oh, okay, that's some good stuff right there. I got it, but I
Mhm.
gotta keep it moving.
Yeah. And I think that's what just owning that space wherever you're at is so
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
And it is your responsibility. It's your life to do exactly what you need to do and what God is asking you to do. And we are so grateful that you were obedient to what you're doing. And you're just as beautiful inside as you are outside. And we just love having you and hearing so much about your story because the look looks different. When you get to hear someone's story, you're like, she don't look like she was in no dark place, or she don't look like, and
yeah,
that's what gives people hope, right? Because
yeah.
they can see it's going to be okay. You're where you're at right now is temporary.
And guess what?
It's
They
going to get
they keep coming. The dark places don't go away. It's just that I respond differently. I've had
better.
some dark spaces, y'all. Like, I mean, just, a couple of years of COVID it's been some crazy stuff going on in my world. So the dark spaces don't go away. It's just the way we respond to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much time we allow or how much space we allow them to take over our life.
Yeah,
You can have a little compartment like, okay, this is your dark space compartment. And
that's
stay in
all
your
you
lane,
have.
and you
You stay
stay, that's
right
all
there.
you can have of me. This is all because this other
Right.
space is occupied with making moves, and
Yeah,
you can't mix the two. So
right.
we definitely appreciate that. So do you have any events coming up? Anywhere people can find you? How they can support you? Do you have any books? Do you have what? How can people find
Ooh,
you?
wow.
And what do
Uh,
you have?
let's see, where am I going to be? I can't even think of where I'm going to be. I did some bookings today. My bookings are coming like in August, June. I have a partnership that I'm working on with Region 9 Head Start Association. I'm really excited about that because it gives me an opportunity to develop. I love developing trainings. Like, I got on the phone with a superintendent the other day, and he was like, Nikki, we did this training, we did this training, we did this training, we did. And I'm like, well, hell, what can I do? I can't add anything. And so what I asked was, what have you sustained over time? And he said to me, that's the problem. So I said, send all of that to me and let me develop something, from what you've already done. Kind of put it organize it in a way where your team can understand what those values are. So I love the opportunities that are presented. I've written 5 books. I have 3 children's books, and I have 2 books for adults. And the title of the book that I go out and talk about all the time is The Beauty Underneath the Struggle,
Mm,
Creating Your Bus Story. So I think all of us have a bus story, and those are those stories that we create from the struggles that we have, but they're beautiful stories of how we overcome. And
yeah,
those are beautiful. God gives us these struggles, for a reason, not to destroy us, but to propel us further into why we are here. And I feel that with a lot of things that have happened in my life over the past 2 years, I just get up in the morning. I mean, 2 years ago, I talked about not being here early on, but 2 years ago, I had some things happen. I'm like, here I am again in this dark place where my default mode is, I don't want to be here. It's like
Right.
that victim mode is kicking, screaming, like, God, I just want to be taken out. Forget it. I don't want to deal with this. And but getting through it and leaning on him as I got through it, it's like, God, I'm so happy I stayed. I'm so happy I stayed around. And I get it now. And I wake up and I'm like, I feel stronger than I was, then. I feel
Yeah.
even stronger. And so, yeah, I have the books, I have events. People usually call me. I don't really host events like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna do this event. People usually call me and say, hey, Nikki, can you come do this for us? Can you come? I talked to a lady today. She wants me to come out to San Francisco on June 9th just to motivate her team. She said everybody's just down right now and they need some motivation. But I'm real motivation. I'm not that rah kind of, hey y'all, let's just be happy. It's
Mhm.
like, no, it's a realness to what we're going through right now, where we can't have that I mean not raw, but fake positivity. And
Mhm.
it's more about, let's be real about where we are right now. Let's be real about you and where you are.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. So, do you have a website where everybody can find all your information, your books, and everything?
yes, I am at www.niki, Niki, 1K, Spears, SP, like Paul, EARS.com.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, we're gonna make sure that they hit you up and like y'all looking for motivation. Y'all better call her because she on fire. She meditate on the road. She meditate while she driving, falling asleep.
Yes, that's right. I'm not
Doing.
trying to close my eyes. I got too much to do, too much to see. But I do want to hear. I want to hear the meditation. So it's good. It's all good.
It's been such a pleasure to have you on, and we're
Thank you.
excited about. We're now family, but we're excited. We're excited because this is going to open up other opportunities, other um, yeah, opportunities for collaborations, for
I love
partnership,
it.
just continue to expand and do the works. And I'm a worker, I'm a grinder. You're a worker, you're a grinder. Brian's a worker and a grinder. So it's just, I mean, you just need to just grind together. But we're just so
Do it.
excited to have you. It was truly a blessing
Thank you.
to hear your story and to hear from you and just letting your light just shines. You done lit up my whole
Um,
office.
thank you.
And so just thank you
You
for
lit
being
mine up
here.
too. My world is lit. I am
Yeah.
lit.
Well, thank you so much. We'll put you in the backstage and
Okay.
then we'll close out the show and then we'll close out with you. But thank you. We love you
Okay.
and we want to make sure y'all go out and you see her website, nikispears.com. She got books for your children. How you say it in Mississippi? Your children. Brian's from Mississippi. Trying to make sure we get everybody in office, but we want to make sure that they reach out to you and buy your books and get your services because you are the bomb. So we love you and thank you so much. We're gonna put you in the backstage and close on out.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. We're gonna come back and close out with you the show.
Okay.
All right
Okay.
now.
Well, yeah.
Nah,
We
nah,
already
nah,
know.
nah.
But we already know. Such an exciting. I just loved her energy and just so many nuggets that you're gonna pull from today and um, she is truly living out her life for other people to it's like if you're not grabbing something from it, if you're not asking more questions, if you're not reaching out to people. I mean, there's people out here that want to share their story and want to give you their services it's not about, oh, I don't want to pay this money to this person or that person, but you need to, we can grow if we just learn to open ourselves, our mind, our heart to learning new things, hearing people's stories, seeing, what their struggles like. Because we don't have to have the same struggles. You can listen to other people's stories. And I just love that she continues to pour, she continues to sow. And she's very passionate about it. Sometimes people just do things to check a box, but she's very passionate about what she does. And I truly
Yeah.
loved hearing from her in her story.
Yeah, I mean, and then just the fact that she's lived through ups and downs. She's lived through having to persist. And when you actually live through toughness, it makes you so much more effective when it comes to pouring into others. Too many people just want to be in that position or that space because it makes money or because it's it sounds good, but no, like you need to be able to have a message that's not like she said, and what I call it fabricated emotion, fabricated motivation. Like don't be fabricating and acting all like you are on top of the world, and then we have a conversation over lunch, you complain and being all negative. What happened to that person who was in front of the room? So
Right.
yeah,
That was giving out the t-shirts.
exactly. So like you gotta be able to be consistent across all dimensions of life, or I don't want to work with you. So
Yeah. I don't want nothing to
off of
do
that
with you.
note, um, Dr. Hobson did it again with a phenomenal guest. She is our talent scout. If there's anybody out there paying big money for talent scouts, Dr. Hobson is taking applications or filling out applications because she knows how to get the best. So thank you guys for being here. As we always mention, make sure you share this content, share this video, because you never know
And we
what
are
somebody out there needs.
HSBA.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, so make sure you look us up. We are HSBA. Find out how you can contribute to our organization, how you can, um, come on the show or volunteer to help with the workshops and professional developments. And if you're working in the space of education and you're like, you know what, my boys need to hear this, or my boys or my girls need to hear from them. But let me make sure my staff is prepared and ready for these kids. And the type of we teach trauma approach, um, we call it trauma approaches.
I'm a
How
focus
you
road.
can trauma focused approaches on how you can really relate to your students. He is not that he's bad, he's bored. Okay, so we need to make sure that we are doing a better job of giving our staff professional developments that are purposeful, right? Not just these sit there and you just give them a professional development and it's like they're not paying attention, they don't take nothing from it. We want to do things more with intentions. And so, look us up. We are hsba.com. Find out how we can help us support you and how you can help us support us. We love you guys and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. You have a good one.